We're here with the writer and director of Nomadland, Chloé Zhao, and also its star, Frances McDormand. Welcome to you both. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
The film, I love the film. So first of all, congratulations on Nomadland. I liked that it was both an intimate portrait of one woman, Fern, in the film, but also this vast portrait of contemporary America at the same time. And I wondered, Chloé, how you balance both the sort of the larger landscape and the more intimate portrait of Fern.
Well, from the very beginning, we wanted Fern to be a guide, to be able to bring us into this vast, really rich world of nomadic living. Having worked on my first film, which is also tackling a big community with a lot of variety, colorful characters, and I realized that what I've learned that you have to anchor the audience in one person's intimate experience so they can feel, comfortable to be able to experience everything else and without getting lost. So that's always the plan from the beginning, to find that balance.
Mm-hmm. And Frances, one of the first things we learn about Fern is her freedom. We see her peeing on the side of the road with not a care in the world, it seems, picking up and leaving when a job is over, according to her own schedule. But we do learn more about her. We begin to see more layers, including that very self-protective sense she has that might look like freedom to others. And I wondered if you could maybe give us your thoughts on who you think Fern is at her core.
Wow. Well, I think Fern is at her core is me at my core. I think that I think something that Chloé was attracted to in the time that we spent together is that there's a childlike quality that we were really interested in for Fern, that she's had a very a very prescribed set of rules living in Empire. And once she hits the road, the possibilities become open and her sense of self-sufficiency is tested. And so that it's really great that you say that. Because I think that we really were hoping that the audience would not worry for her, but only be excited by the possibilities of her seeing what was going to come around the next corner.
Yeah,
and being more and more and more comfortable testing herself against those things.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested that you say that who she is at her core is who you are at your core. How close are you to this character that you're playing, do you think?
Well, it's really, it's a question every time, right? Because I've practiced pretending for 38 years or more. Let's say maybe 63, but I think that there's always a part of every character that's true to some part of the actor's life. But in this, it was more, Chloé and I've talked about this. It was more about just being present and being there as the person I am in every situation that we found ourselves in. And then, having a kind of a baseline that Chloé created about Fern, that we created together. And then it was every situation had to kind of use that as a trampoline and then become whatever it became in the situation. Mm-hmm. But so just as much, there's a core of me in Mildred Hayes and Marge Gunderson and Olive Kittredge. It's part of my core in all of them. But
there's definitely
with
Marge.
Fern, it was.
There's definitely Marge in you.
Definitely a bit of Marge in you, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, just a little bit of Marge, just a little tiny bit. But what's also great is I think that I also think that Chloé was able to build on all those other characters. Because that's what an audience will come to it.
Yeah.
If they know my work, right?
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure they will. They'll be building on what they know of you and what you've shown on screen before. Mm-hmm. We see more of Fern's life, her past life, that world in Empire, her family, as the film moves along. And it prompted the question for me, did Fern jump off of that middle-class merry-go-round, or was she pushed?
Fran.
Well, what do you think? I mean, it's interesting, right, Chloe? Because the major difference between me and Fern is that I left home. I left a working class background, an American working class background at 17, and never really went back. Fern was made one major choice, which was aligning herself with a man named Beau, who she fell in love with, which kind of determined the next 40 years of her life, 45 years of her life. And so it wasn't it's like the thread of me and Fern didn't pick up until Fern's 61. Right? So she starts where I started at 17. She starts at 61. So I don't think that I think the journey of the movie, right, Chloe, is her finding out exactly the answer to that question you just asked.
And I find that when we were on the road, the time I spent on the road, there are two types of people in general. One is really a nomad at heart, true nomad. They belong there, whether they spend 40 years in a house or not, but they were always meant to hit the road. And there are people who use the road more as a means to an end. Is that how you say? So because they need to, they were forced out of their homes after 2008. And so then they spend many years on the road saving up so they can have a house again. And I think Fern, I personally think she was always a true nomad deep inside. And she was there for, and then when she finally left, it took her a bit time to figure out who she really is. And I do think hopefully when you watch the movie at the end, you go, oh, she belongs to the road. It's not going to be easy, but that's where she finds herself.
She seems at home there.
I think so.
The film does show a lot of that precarious work, which is the reality for so many people now around the world, really, not just in the US, in terms of what jobs they can get, how long those jobs last, what kind of security they have. But the film doesn't feel primarily a work of social commentary. That feels very subtly expressed in the film. And I wonder how intentional that was, how hard you wanted to go on that message.
Pretty hard, I think, right? I feel like it's really, look, I think the book gave us a really rich world of what is happening to the details of lives of nomadic living, the challenges. And there are aspects of the book that I immediately struck a chord, like Empire, the disappearance of Empire, of the last, great American company town. Linda May as a woman who wanting to build the Earthship, and RTR, courtside, all these elements. They feel extremely human, these characters, and the experiences of people in these places feels extremely human. We try really hard to tell a story where the audiences can come in, doesn't matter what they believe in, what political party they belong in, they can relate on a human level first, and then they can take the judgment, they can walk away feeling however they want to feel. We're not here to teach, we're here to hopefully communicate and make you feel something. I mean, Fran, you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine who saw the film when we had a friend and family screening, he actually, it was really interesting, and I want to play this for you, Chloe, because he interviewed me. He got out his tape recorder after he saw the film, and he said, I would like to ask some questions. And it was fantastic, because that's not what he does. So, but he had a great description of Fern. He said she's a docent, not just a guide, but a docent. And that she's been, we kind of trained me to, like, the same way as someone who would take someone through a museum or an archaeological dig or something and say, here's the facts you need to know about this world. Now take your audience there, lead them, guide them, hold them by the hand, push them into a new perspective of this, and then let them make the judgment for themselves of what they see and how it affects them.
Yeah.
So I think docent's a great word, isn't it? It's a great description.
Yeah. It's like in the production, though.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Chloé, all of your films, including Nomadland, but Song My Brother Taught Me, and The Rider as well, have this beautiful exploration of the landscape as the setting, not so much the backdrop, but the setting for the stories that you're telling. And that's very much the case here as well. And there's beautiful images that are sometimes just glimpsed as Fern is moving through these places, but sometimes the camera lingers on just elements of the landscape or something in the natural world as well. And I wonder if you could talk about what those elements of the natural world add to these human stories that you're telling.
I felt like when I was growing up in cities, I was quite deprived of nature, and I didn't really think much of it. And then when I'm older, I realized how much I needed it, and even when I visit a friend in Bolinas, we go for hikes, and I never really been to the Northern California, the redwoods, things like that. And when I saw that, I was like, that's got to be in the movie. And the landscape, I've traveled in South Dakota, in Arizona, places like that. When you live in a van, you are exposed to nature, whether you like it or not. And the same as when you're on the reservation, you just are exposed, the way people in cities are. I just feel like nature humbles you, and it makes you, put you in perspective all the time. And I think the blessing, the curse of now having a traditional house also is a blessing. Swanky would tell you that. Being in nature changed her life. And we want to tell that aspect of Fern's journey as well. So it was important for us to get to the right landscape at the right time of the year so we can actually film there without extreme weather, and just capture as much of that as possible. And as a producer, Fern, you can maybe elaborate on that. It's not easy to plan a shoot like that, to be able to actually travel to these places and also shoot the film within a certain amount of time. But it was important to us.
Yeah, Fern, actually, I want to ask about your...
Yeah, it wasn't a traditional...
As well. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it wasn't a traditional 2-month or 3-month shoot. We shot over 5 months, 5 states, 5 months, with downtime in between to wait for the seasons to change. And but also to elaborate on that idea of the landscapes. When I did, someone made a comment about when I did 3 billboards, Mildred Hayes and 3 billboards, and they said, a close-up of Frances McDormand's face is like visiting a national park, which I really loved, because there is something about an unaltered, aging face that gives you perspective on. It's kind of like it's like a landscape. It's like a natural landscape. And what I love about the faces in Nomadland is that we're all mature. So if you see a saguaro cactus, how do you say it? Saguaro cactus. It's almost the same. It's Swanky and Bob Wells and Linda May and me. There's something about it being there for a long time and being in the place it's going to go back into. And I think as I get older, one of the most important things to me is I've got to be in the environment that my cellular structure is going to go back in and feed. And that's not concrete and brick. That's dirt. So I think that it's a real testament. And I think that this was part of your plan. I think that Chloé has a real connection to the cycle of a human life, and that the exploration of a group of older people, of elders, of seniors, of seasoned people is a part of that landscape too. And so the desert landscape is the perfect place to put us.
Well said.
But yeah, producing. Ask me a more specific question about producing.
Well, I wanted to ask you, as a producer, sometimes you get to make choices, like who the director is and some of the other cast members, those kinds of things. And how much of a role did you have in putting the overall team together here?
Well, we have actually a team of many producers, but specifically 5, the 2 of us and 3 others. But I think really the most important thing I did as a producer was listen to my partner, Peter Spears, when he said, you should read this book, Nomadland. And then connecting that almost immediately to the writer, which I had seen at the Toronto Film Festival.
Was that where you saw it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's great.
And then I saw Chloé Zhao, and I was like, who the fuck is Chloé Zhao? And then met. And then I think that was probably the most important, just that kind of synchronicity. And then it just played out from there. It was like, boom, boom, boom. I mean, it just literally played out from there.
Yeah,
but I think from a, but you know, and there was
the casting as well.
Yeah. And there was a point that I was not going to be, I wasn't going to be in the film. We were going to cast, Linda May was going to be the protagonist, the main protagonist of the film. And then I was going to play a kind of a Linda May character. And then it became clear that it was going to develop into really a separate narrative from the book, just with that as a taking off point. But from a day-to-day point of view, I had to completely step back from any producerial position because I had too much to do.
You had a lot to.
Like I said at one point to Chloe, it's much better that I pretend to be exhausted as Fern than actually be exhausted. So I just did what I was told.
I never forget when we were prepping and she came back from Salvation Army. It's like, I found the costume. And she's got a dress. She's got all these little things. And so she was doing her own makeup, cutting her hair. She was doing her own costume and then, and coming up with helping me with the script. And also like casting was, David and also people from your own life, your friend Melissa as well. She brought in cast, and it was a collage of cast characters from Jessica's book, people we met, literally Derek, the young kid that Fern met. We just met in the desert randomly, and also people from Friend's life that she brought in. So it's a collage of collaboration when it comes to casting.
Okay. Last thing I'll ask, Chloé, is you are the co-writer, the director, the editor as well, which I found interesting. There are very few directors working at feature film level who are also able to edit their films. I'm wondering what being involved in that part of the filmmaking process gives you and adds to the film, do you think?
It's very humbling. You see all the mistakes you made on set every day. And it's a blessing and a curse. I think a blessing is that you just have a lot of, you don't have to sort of go through another person. It's also a curse because you're not having another person. That's why it was incredible. It was very important for me to get feedbacks all the time and going through many, many cuts and screen to an audience and get notes, because you're just in this capsule yourself. But I because I've done that quite intensively in my previous two films, so I get in the habit of when I'm on set, I'm constantly thinking about what coverage I need to know that I can walk away, because the kind of films that the writer songs and Nomadland doesn't really allow much reshoot. It's not even just a money thing, because things just happen. We never see some of the people again. So you have to have what you need on set. So a lot of times I rely on Fern as well to help to be able to edit in my head and get all the coverage and then go into the editing room. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg.
Right.
I think.
Well, thank you both so much. You've made really one of the true standout films of the year. I've seen most of what's been produced this year, and this is one of my very favorites. I loved it. So thank you for Nomadland, and thank you for taking the time today as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Frances McDormand, Chloé
Zhao. Yay, film festival.
Yeah.
Yay! See you. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye.